The awakening. The Earth shook violently, as if the planet itself was trying to expel a great force from its core. At first, it was dismissed as just another earthquake, but the tremor grew stronger, longer, unnaturally so. Across the world, buildings cracked, roads split, and the very ground began to tremble in warning. In the heart of Tokyo, skyscrapers swayed like reeds in the wind, but the worst was yet to come. From deep beneath the Earth's surface, a colossal creature stared. For centuries, it had been nothing more than a myth, an ancient, forgotten terror buried beneath layers of rock and time. But now, the legend was waking. Its massive claws ripped through the crust of the planet, tearing through everything in its path. With a deafening roar that echoed across the city, it emerged, an enormous, reptilian titan, its green, scaly skin glistening in the midday sun, eyes glowing with a malevolent fury. The beast's roar was followed by the crushing sound of falling buildings. A wave of destruction swept across Tokyo as the titan stepped forward, its enormous legs smashing through streets and structures alike. Cars were flung like toys, and people screamed as they ran for cover. But it was too late. The beast's sheer size and power were unstoppable. Elsewhere, similar creatures were rising from the earth, each one more terrifying than the last. In New York, a giant serpent-like creature reared its head above the skyline, while a hulking, horned beast rampaged through the streets of London. They had all awakened, and humanity was no longer the dominant species on Earth. The world's government scrambled in panic, but it was clear this was no random attack. These titans, these ancient giants, were here with a purpose, and nothing would stop them from fulfilling it. The time for survival had begun. Humanity's desperate counterattack. The world had never seen a threat like this. The titans, colossal and unrelenting, continued their path of destruction across the globe. In the wake of the chaos, humanity's leaders were forced to come together, pooling their remaining resources in a desperate attempt to fight back. The world's military might, once proud and vast, now seemed insignificant in the face of these gargantuan creatures. Governments declared martial law, and cities became battle zones. The United Nations convened an emergency summit, bringing together the brightest minds and most powerful nations to develop a plan. It was clear that conventional weapons, missiles, bombs, and tanks were useless. The Titans were impervious to everything humanity had to offer. A new strategy was required. Scientists and engineers from around the world began working around the clock, creating a solution. The answer came in the form of massive mechs, giant, humanoid robots designed to fight the Titans on their level. Each mech was equipped with advanced weaponry, reinforced armor, and cutting-edge technology, offering humanity's last hope of survival. Lieutenant Emma Blake, one of the top pilots in the newly formed Titan division, stood at the helm of the most powerful mech ever built, Sentinel. She was a seasoned fighter, trained in combat tactics and survival. But as she looked at the towering figure of the Titan that had decimated New York City, a cold fear gripped her heart. It wasn't just about winning, it was about surviving. As her mech powered up, the cockpit lighting flickered, and the commands began to flow through her, the familiar hum of the machine filling the air. Sentinel, online, Emma muttered, adjusting her grip on the controls. The battle was about to begin. She knew there was no turning back. The world was depending on her. Humanity's counterattack had started. It was time to fight for survival. The first battle. The city of New York was in ruins, its once proud skyline now a shattered memory. The Titan that had brought it to its knees stood tall among the wreckage, its hulking form towering over the few remaining survivors. Streets that had once been filled with life were now empty, save for the occasional frightened pedestrian who had managed to escape the initial assault. Emma Blake stood in the cockpit of Sentinel, her fingers gripping the control sticks as the mech powered up. The machine's massive legs shifted, each step sending tremors through the broken city. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning debris. She couldn't afford to think about the destruction around her. She had a job to do. Target locked, the mech's AI announced, its calm, robotic voice offering a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she took a deep breath, locking eyes with the Titan looming before her. It was a massive reptilian creature, its skin dark and covered in jagged, spiny armor. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural, blood-red light, and its sharp claws raked the ground, leaving deep gouges in the earth. "Engage," Emma commanded, her voice steady but laced with tension. The mech's arms raised, and Sentinel's cannons fired, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts toward the Titan. The sound of the explosion was deafening, but the creature barely flinched. Its thick scales absorbed the energy like they were nothing more than rain. Emma's heart sank. This was not going to be easy. The Titan roared, a deafening sound that shook the very air. It turned toward Sentinel, its massive tail whipping through the air like a wrecking ball. Emma barely had time to react. The tail slammed into the mech with a thunderous crash, sending it sprawling across the pavement. For a moment, everything went dark. The lights in the cockpit flickered, and the ground beneath her shook. "Damage report," Emma said, gritting her teeth. She couldn't afford to waste time. The city was falling, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. "Critical damage to left arm," the AI replied. "System reboot in progress." The Titan advanced, each step bringing it closer to the fallen mech. Its claws scraped across the ground, sending sparks flying as it prepared for its next attack. Emma could see the creature's massive jaws opening, revealing rows of jagged teeth that gleamed with an unnatural hunger. Her pulse raced. She couldn't let the mech fall. Not now. Not when humanity had invested everything in this final stand. With a deep breath, Emma slammed her foot onto the pedal, and Sentinel lurched to its feet. The left arm was useless, but the right was still functional. She gripped the controls, her hands moving with practiced precision. The Titan lunged forward, its claws aimed directly at Sentinel's chest. But Emma was ready. She dodged, moving the mech just in time to avoid the fatal blow. The Titan's claws scraped across the side of the mech, leaving deep gashes in its armor, but Emma retaliated with a swift strike from the right arm. The mech's fist connected with the Titan's side, sending it reeling backward. For a brief moment, Emma allowed herself to feel a spark of hope. The Titan staggered, its massive form faltering under the force of the blow. But that moment was fleeting. The Titan recovered quickly, its red eyes burning with rage. It roared again, louder this time, shaking the ground beneath them. Sentinel wasn't out of the fight yet, but it was losing ground. The energy reserves were draining fast, and the city was crumbling all around them. Emma's mind raced. There was no time for hesitation. If she didn't end this soon, the mech would be destroyed, and the city would fall. With a grim determination, Emma activated the final weapon. The Sentinel's chest opened, revealing a massive energy cannon, the last hope of humanity's defense. She aimed the cannon directly at the Titan's chest, knowing that this was her one shot. "Firing," she whispered to herself, her finger hovering over the trigger. The cannon unleashed a brilliant beam of energy, bright enough to light up the entire city. The blast hit the Titan square in the chest, sending it staggering back, smoke billowing from its chest. For a moment, the Titan seemed to falter, its eyes dimming. But then, with a final roar, it lunged forward, pushing through the blast with an almost unnatural resilience. Sentinel's energy reserves were depleted. The mech staggered back, its systems overheating. Emma cursed under her breath. They were losing. The Titan was still standing, and she was running out of options. She had only one choice left. "Full power," she muttered, slamming the lever forward. The last of the mech's energy surged through the systems, and for a moment, Sentinel glowed with an intensity that matched the Titan's fury. With a final, earth-shaking clash, Sentinel and the Titan collided once more. Emma pushed the mech beyond its limits, knowing it was their last chance. The battle raged on, but the outcome was far from certain, and in the back of her mind, Emma knew that this was just the beginning. The Titan's defeat was a small victory in a war that had only just begun. The Titan's strategy. The dust from the battle settled, but the victory felt hollow. Sentinel had dealt the Titan a significant blow, but the creature had not been vanquished. It staggered back, roaring in defiance, as it retreated into the shadows of the ruined city. The battle was far from over. The Titan was still alive, and there were more where it came from. Emma Blake stood in the cockpit of Sentinel, her eyes fixed on the screen as the mecha systems recalibrated. Her heart was still pounding from the ferocity of the fight, but the victory didn't feel like a win. The Titan had been formidable, yes, but there was something more, something troubling. The creature hadn't fought like an animal, it had fought with purpose, and that purpose was beginning to reveal itself. The Sentinel's AI came online, its voice calm and collected in the midst of chaos. "Lieutenant Blake, satellite scans show multiple large movements. Titans are emerging from various locations across the globe. Emma's mind raced. The earlier assumption had been that the Titans were mindless beasts, driven only by destruction. But now, it seemed as though there was a greater strategy at play. How many? She asked, her voice tight. Hundreds. At least. Major concentrations in Asia, Europe, and North America. Estimated time of arrival in key locations, 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Emma repeated in disbelief. How can they coordinate like this? The AI paused, processing the data. We have detected a pattern. The Titans are attacking in waves, targeting population centers and key infrastructure. They are avoiding certain areas. Why? Emma asked, a chilling realization creeping into her mind. We don't know yet. However, their movements suggest a deliberate effort to weaken human defenses systematically. It was then that Emma understood. The Titans weren't just attacking at random. They were picking their targets carefully, bypassing military strongholds and instead focusing on cities that were already crippled or unprepared. It was as if they were testing humanity's defenses, exhausting the resources and manpower of the few remaining strongholds before striking where it would hurt the most. She clenched her fist around the control stick. The battle for New York had been brutal, but it had been only the beginning. The Titans weren't just mindless animals, they were part of a larger, more sophisticated invasion. And if they were allowed to continue with their strategy, humanity wouldn't survive. I need a plan, Emma muttered to herself, her mind spinning. It was clear the world's leaders hadn't anticipated this level of coordination. She hadn't, either. They had assumed the Titans were nothing more than a natural disaster, an unstoppable force of nature. But now, it seemed there was more at play. She stood from the cockpit and activated the comms. Commander Harris, this is Lieutenant Blake. We need to initiate Phase 2 of the operation. Immediately. Phase 2. Harris's voice crackled through the line. Are you sure, Lieutenant? The Titans are still active in New York, and we've barely made a dent. We don't have time for hesitation. These Titans are more organized than we thought. They are not just mindless creatures, they are strategic. We need to shift our approach. We need to hit them where it hurts the most. There was a pause before Harris responded. Understood. We'll mobilize the remaining forces. Meet us at the command center. We're going to need every weapon we've got. Emma disconnected the comms and took a deep breath. The battle had just begun, but now, it was no longer just about survival. It was about outsmarting the Titans, predicting their next move, and staying one step ahead. If they could figure out the pattern in their attack, they could strike back with precision. The fight was no longer just physical, it was tactical. She powered Sentinel forward, the mech's heavy steps reverberating through the deserted streets of New York. The sky above was a clear blue, but it felt ominous. The calm before the storm. As she moved toward the command center, she couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was unfolding, something that none of them had been prepared for. The Titans weren't just here to destroy, they were here to dominate. And they had a plan. Emma's mind raced as the realization hit her. This war wouldn't just be won by force. They had to think like the Titans. If the creatures were attacking with a strategy, then they, too, needed one. The final stand would come, and when it did, it would not just be a matter of brute strength. It would be a battle of wits, and only the side that could outmaneuver the other would emerge victorious. As she prepared for the next phase of humanity's counterattack, Emma knew that the true fight for survival had just begun, and it would require more than just mechs. It would require every ounce of strategy, intelligence, and courage they had left. The final stand. The world had fallen into chaos, and humanity's last hope now rested on a single decision. One final push to defeat the Titans or watch the Earth become their playground. Emma Blake stood in the command center, staring at the holographic map displayed in front of her. Red marks scattered across the globe, pinpointing locations where Titans had struck or were preparing to strike. The situation was dire. The Titans weren't just attacking, they were methodically destroying humanity's ability to fight back. Time is running out, Lieutenant, Commander Harris said, his voice grim. We've lost most of our major cities. If we don't take action soon, there won't be anything left to protect. Emma nodded, her gaze fixed on the map. The Titans' strategy was clear now. They had divided the world into zones, attacking key locations one by one, crippling humanity's defenses. It wasn't just about destruction, it was about domination. And with every city that fell, their strength grew. Phase 2 is ready, Emma said, turning to face Harris. We've built an experimental weapon, an energy cannon powerful enough to take down a Titan in one shot. It's the last thing we have left. If we don't hit their central hub, we're finished. The weapon, nicknamed the Last Dawn, had been humanity's final hope, an enormous cannon built from the remnants of the world's most advanced military technology. It was powerful enough to pierce through the toughest Titan armor, but using it would come at a great cost. The cannon was located in the heart of New York, surrounded by ruins, and firing it would obliterate the surrounding area. Emma swallowed hard. The choice was clear. Fire the cannon, and hope the Titan's core is destroyed, or risk everything and continue fighting on the front lines. She knew the risks. If they failed, not only would they lose the battle, they would lose the last of their cities. Lieutenant, we're ready to proceed, Harris continued. But you'll need to get there first. Sentinel is our only hope of getting to the cannon before the Titans surround it. Emma's mind raced. She had fought countless battles, but this one was different. The weight of the decision hung heavily on her shoulders. If they succeeded, they could destroy the Titan's core, severing their link to the Earth. But failure would mean the end of humanity. We don't have time for hesitation, Emma said, her voice firm. Let's move. With that, Emma climbed back into Sentinel, the mech's cockpit closing around her with a sharp hiss. The mech's systems powered up, its massive frame glowing with energy. She could feel the familiar hum of the machine, but today, the feeling was different. There was no room for mistakes. Sentinel, moving out, Emma commanded, her grip tightening on the controls. The mech's massive legs began to move, each step sending vibrations through the crumbling streets. New York was a ghost town now, its once iconic skyline reduced to rubble. The streets were empty, except for the occasional survivor desperately fleeing the advancing Titans. As Sentinel made its way through the devastated city, the Titans' roars echoed in the distance. The creatures were everywhere, but none had yet reached the cannon. Time was running out. Every second that passed brought them closer to a disaster they could not afford. Ahead, the energy cannon loomed, a massive, futuristic structure buried in the remains of the city. The cannon's sleek design contrasted sharply with the ruins around it, its enormous barrel pointed skyward, ready to fire. But as Sentinel approached, the ground began to shake once more. The air was thick with tension as a monstrous Titan appeared on the horizon, larger than any Emma had seen before. It was massive, with rough, blackened scales and glowing red eyes. The creature had appeared out of nowhere, blocking the path to the cannon. Its jaws opened, revealing rows of sharp teeth as it snarled at the approaching mech. The Titan was going to stop them. Sentinel had to get through, no matter what. Emma's heart raced as she quickly assessed the situation. Target locked, Sentinel's AI confirmed. The Titan advanced, its enormous claws dragging along the pavement, sending sparks flying. Emma's fingers danced across the controls, activating the mech's weapon systems. The battle that followed was the fiercest Emma had ever fought. The Titan's claws slashed through the air, aiming to crush Sentinel with one blow. Emma dodged, using the mech's agility to outmaneuver the Titan's devastating attacks. She fired the mech's energy cannons, each blast striking the Titan's tough hide, but the creature kept coming, relentless in its pursuit. As the battle raged on, Emma saw her chance. The Titan had exposed a weak point, an opening just below its massive jaw. With a deep breath, she aimed the mech's final weapon, Sentinel's energy blade, directly at the Titan's throat. With one swift motion, she launched the attack. The blade struck with incredible force, piercing through the Titan's armor and severing its spinal cord. The Titan let out a deafening roar before collapsing, its massive form crumpling to the ground. But Emma didn't have time to celebrate. She knew the battle was far from over. With the path to the cannon cleared, Emma accelerated, driving Sentinel toward the weapon. The energy cannon hummed to life, and Emma gripped the controls with renewed focus. This was it. Humanity's last chance. Firing the Last Dawn, Emma said, her voice steady but filled with resolve. The cannon fired, a blinding beam of energy that tore through the air with the force of 1,000 storms. The blast hit the Titan's central core, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a blinding explosion, the core detonated. The shockwave was felt for miles, sending debris flying through the streets. Sentinel staggered from the force of the blast, but Emma held firm. The battle was over. The Titan's reign had come to an end. But even as the dust settled, Emma knew one thing for certain. The victory was hard-won, and the scars of the war would last forever. Humanity had survived, but at what cost?